I have 110-ish students. 2 of them are reading on grade level.
It's official. Teachers have now graduated from being completely fed up and outraged by students to just being completely astonished by the lack of reading comprehension, critical thinking skills, and even just the ability to behave or self-regulate. And although they're all trying to put their finger on where exactly we went wrong as a society or even how to fix it, no one really knows.
And people are like, what can we do to fix it? I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea. I have no idea.
We are to a point where teachers are actually fearful for the state of our society and what will happen if we send these kids out into the world. Some say worst case scenario is it will be a collapse of civilization, while others think the best case scenario is that while few will thrive, the majority will get left behind. But what does that even mean?
The class divide of the future is going to be who can read and critically think and who cannot. Let me explain. What every educator on this app is talking about and what every educator in the field is noticing is a dramatic decline in basic critical reasoning skills and basic literacy skills among students. This is particularly pronounced among high school age students where they're engaging with more complex material and can't grasp basic concepts or manage basic memory about those concepts. And what this is creating is a generation entering the workforce without basic comprehension skills that is going to make it very hard for them to keep and maintain any form of employment. On the inverse of this, we're seeing kids in more affluent families being not only pulled out of the public school system and sent to things like Montessori schools, but being pulled away from technology, not given access to anything more than, say, a TV or a video game station until they're a teenager. No tablets, no phones, things like that. And what they're doing to fill their time instead is the normal childhood stuff of playing outside, reading a book, coloring sheets, all of these things that seem like play but are actually building soft skills that make someone much better able to navigate the world around them as they get older. The gap is not going to be who can use AI and who cannot. The gap is not going to be who is an all-star on the ACT with a full ride and who is not. The gap is going to be who can reason in a basic way and who cannot. And those that cannot will probably be left behind.
Now, maybe you're like me and you just have elementary-aged kids and toddlers and maybe even a baby on the way. Yes, I am a real person with a real life and real kids, and we do have our 4th child on the way. But I say that because I think a lot of these issues are becoming increasingly apparent in middle school and high school aged kids. And for me, with the age of my children, I do see a difference in some kids who don't have devices or tablets and those who do and who are on them all the time. Kids who have unlimited access to the internet and YouTube and those who do not. There is a difference, you can tell, but I think that difference that margin of a difference gets progressively wider as children grow up to be teenagers. And the point these teachers are trying to get across is, I can't hold your child's attention long enough to teach them. Even worse, they can't read. Even worse, they're angry and unruly and overstimulated. Even worse, they might know that 2 + 2 is 4, but they can't put 2 and 2 together to come to a conclusion.
It's not just literacy, and it's not just like lack of content knowledge. It's not just critical thinking skills. It's basic thinking skills. My students can decode almost nothing. They cannot apply inference. They cannot process questions that are longer than a sentence. They cannot connect cause and effect. They can't track multi-step ideas like in a political cartoon. And it's scaring me a little. Like, I see it every single day. I had a kid yesterday, 4 kids actually, this happened in every class. We were doing guided notes, supposed to be a real easy day, it was a review. They wrote down, Maryland was founded as a safe haven for Catholics. It was on the board, they wrote it down, and before we moved on, I call in a student and I ask, hey, where were the Catholics one more time? And these students, what they do is they look at me, and then they look at their notes, and then they look at the board. They look back at their notes. And some of them never answered me. They never figured out the answer. It was wild. And I kept giving them hints, like rephrasing the question and saying, like, it's in your notes. We just wrote it down. Where are the Catholics? It's on the board. And they never got it. They can't read their own notes. And I don't mean their handwriting. I mean, like, they can't make heads or tails of it on the page. I had a kid today. I have these extra credit assignments, 3 of them. They're on the wall. They could turn it in at any time. And I think they're pretty easy. Like this one, and it replaces your lowest daily grade. So like end of the quarter, lots of these start to roll in. This one says, on a separate sheet of paper, choose 4 principles of the Constitution, and for each one, write what it means in your own words, an example of how it works in the U.S. government today, and a personal example, how that principle might show up in your own life, school, or community. I wrote them an example, and I labeled it, do not use the example, and I even gave them a checklist at the bottom. Make sure you have these 4 things so you can get full credit before you turn it in. Make sure you have the 4 principles and the meaning and the examples. Make sure it's 1 full page. And this student just turned it in, and I read it. First of all, they don't write it on a separate sheet of paper. I've only had 1 kid this year do that. They just write like in the spaces of the instruction, like in the margins and stuff. Very bizarre. But like they just don't do the assignment. It's like they don't understand because it's not written in like a multiple choice format. This is exactly what this student wrote. They wrote the principle's definition in the student's own words. They rewrote the instructions. The whole thing. Even the example where it says do not use this example, they just copied the instructions and wrote them again. And then checked off the checklist even though like you didn't do it. And this student, just like the students yesterday, I don't think they're fooling with me. This is a student who's doing extra credit on their time off. They genuinely want to bring their grade up. I know them. But like, is that what you think that the extra credit assignment was? You sat there and thought like, yeah, she wants me to copy down the directions and then turn it in.
Now, is this all because we've given 1-year-olds tablets or because we're giving 8-year-olds cell phones? No, but it is a big piece of the puzzle. But some other factors that teachers and parents have noticed is, for one, COVID. These are now middle schoolers and young high schoolers that missed out on some pretty formative years because of COVID, but we can't keep blaming everything on COVID, right? But it seems like after these kids came back to school, all of a sudden, teachers no longer had authority or respect. Things became automated, and instead of using books and paper and pencil, everything is now on a Chromebook. Kids developed a sense of entitlement that I don't think any of us have ever seen before. And parents who honestly just enable bad behavior, too afraid to hurt their child's feelings, so afraid that they ended up validating everything they thought or felt, creating sort of an echo chamber of entitlement that these kids have carried out into the world.
These schools are an absolute zoo. All of them are an absolute zoo. And I'm like, people are like, what's the solution? Bro, I don't know. But some of y'all parents, how are y'all parenting y'all kids? Because they are terrible. I'm going to tell you right now, some of y'all kids be walking around these schools absolutely terrorizing these teachers. Absolutely terrorizing. Some of y'all kids get these teachers out here calling their psychiatrists to take extra anxiety medicine and depression medicine and all this kind of stuff like that. Y'all wrong. Y'all wrong. And then we call y'all to tell y'all what y'all kids done did, and y'all want to know what we did to your child for them to act like that. Get that. What's the purpose of calling y'all? It ain't no reason to call y'all. Now the parents that are supportive, we appreciate y'all, but the majority of y'all ain't worth 2 rusted nickels. Y'all kids bad, and y'all kids disrespectful. They ain't got no respect for authority whatsoever, and they don't care.
So let me tell you what it's like teaching iPad teenagers. I've had to block access to most things like YouTube, SoundCloud, cool math games, even Google search at this point, because they get too distracted or they just cheat on everything. But if I see a student working quietly, I'll come over, I'll activate their music for them. So one of my students is addicted to YouTube. And when she sees me walking around turning on people's music, instead of just waiting peacefully, twice she turns around and she's like, "Are you not gonna come over here? Can you turn mine on too?" And I explain that attitude is why I'm gonna walk the other way. And after I say that, she starts crying, like boo-hoo crying. And when the crying didn't work, she snaps. "I hate this class. I can't stand being here. I don't even like you. All I want to do is watch some videos and you won't even let me have that." Maybe because this is school. Maybe because you're failing. You are not entitled to be on YouTube and SoundCloud. And this is just the first wave of the iPad kids. It's gonna get worse.
Honey, teaching kids isn't the same anymore. It's just not. Used to be kids would listen to teachers simply because they were teachers. That was the respect of it all. Now, no, honey. I gotta keep the kids constantly engaged. Not even just engaged, but almost overstimulated. The candy isn't even working anymore. Giving out candy for positive reinforcement doesn't even work anymore. They don't care about that.
These kids have a frightening ability for information to go from their eyes to their hands and not pass through the brain at all.
You're a parent right now watching this and you're like, what am I supposed to do? These teachers are begging us to be more involved, to support them, to be more proactive in our kids' lives. And that means taking away the devices as much as we can. That means holding them accountable for their actions. That means supporting the teachers in not only the decisions they're making, but when they're calling us and telling us anything about our kids, we're not automatically on the defensive. And I know we want to support our kids and we want to, advocate for them, mostly because, heck, half of us were never advocated for as kids, and we don't want them to go through that. But sometimes we need to trust the adults that we have entrusted to teach them. Sometimes we do. And I won't try and give advice to the parents of teens. I have no idea what you guys are going through. But for the small kids, for the elementary aged kids, for the toddlers, for those who haven't even started school yet, take away the screens as much as you can. The tablets are ruining their little brains. It's causing addiction. It's causing the angry outbursts. They're not able to regulate. They're not able to be bored. They're not able to pay attention. And they're not going to do well in school when all their bodies, subconsciously or not, are thinking about and wanting and yearning for is stimulation. It's not healthy for them. I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. If you care about keeping kids safe online and in real life, then I welcome you to subscribe and support me in that mission. I thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.